Coming up on Talking Points, First Lady Jill Biden in the North Country today. We'll have more on the reason behind her visit.
And a graphic police killing in Memphis, Tennessee. We'll have the latest on the protests and what punishment the officers in the case may face.
And the United States is sending additional aid to Ukraine, aid that would help Ukraine's efforts against Russia. We'll break down what is being sent and how it could impact the war. Talking Points begins right now. Hey, good evening and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Chilla Cassia-Dele.
And I'm Tegan Brown. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We begin tonight's show with the latest from the First Lady's visit to Fort Drum. First Lady Jill Biden was in Jefferson County this afternoon to visit Fort Drum. Dr. Biden spent the afternoon driving around the base discussing the Joining Forces initiative to support military families. Talking Points analyst Jake Morrell was there today.
Guys, I'm standing inside the USO at Fort Drum, and you can see right behind me First Lady Jill Biden having conversations with military families about anything from child care to overall Veterans Affairs. FLOTUS is here as part of her Joining Forces initiative that she started in 2011 alongside former First Lady Michelle Obama. Dr. Biden spoke just about a few minutes ago. Her main message today, she wants to hear the concerns of these families and relay them to her husband in the Oval Office.
Positive things to say, negative things to say. I want to take them back to my husband to say, look, here's what we can do and here's what we need to do better. So we need to better serve our military families. And your health and happiness is of major importance to me and to Joe.
Jill Biden here at Fort Drum to follow through on a promise she made to military families 12 years ago. For CitrusTV News, I'm Jake Morrell.
New York 22, the district we are in, has been a highly contested congressional seat, as we saw in the most recent election cycle. Republican Brandon Williams won the district in last year's midterms over Democrat Francis Knoll. Today it was announced Williams will have a new challenger in 2024. Talking Points analyst Luke Radel is in studio with a story he broke earlier today. Luke, who's challenging Williams?
Thank you, Chile and Tegan. The challenger's name is Caitlin Kriesel. She's a Manlius town councilor. Congressman Brandon Williams, as you said, has his first Democratic challenger in the race for New York's 22nd congressional district. Kriesel is a Democrat from Manlius, and she tells me exclusively she's running for Congress in 2024. Kriesel is currently serving her second term on the Manlius Town Board. In recent weeks, she's positioned herself as a vocal critic of Congressman Williams, attacking many of his first moves in Congress. She called his vote to protect the survivors of failed abortions, quote, abhorrent, and called on Williams to support federal gun control legislation in the aftermath of the tragic gun violence incidents here in Syracuse. Williams currently represents a district that extends from the city of Syracuse to the city of Utica. The Republican freshman won by less than 3,000 votes in one of the closest House races in the 2022 midterms. His opponent, Francis Knoll, told me that one of the reasons why he lost in 2022 was because he had so little time to campaign in the aftermath of a turbulent redistricting process here in New York State. It seems that Caitlin Kriesel is attempting to avoid that fate, announcing her campaign a full 21 months before the next election. And she isn't alone. Another Democrat, Sarah Clee Hood of DeWitt, tells me she's actively considering a run of her own, setting up a crowded Democratic primary in NY22, a major battleground seat key to Democrats' hopes of taking back the House in 2 years. Chile and Tegan, back to you guys.
Luke Radel, thank you so much. New data from the Biden administration released on Thursday gives a closer look at the amount of Americans impacted by student loan debt. Talking Points analyst Erica Love is in studio to give us a look at how the program has progressed. Erica?
Thanks, Tegan. Last August, President Biden announced the delivery of one of his campaign trail promises to end student debt for millions of Americans. But after further work with the Department of Education, Biden's solution to crippling amounts of debt for Americans received backlash by conservative lawmakers. But let's first take a look and let's talk about what this program was promising and why it's become controversial. So essentially, the program was constructed to cancel up to $20,000 in student loans for individuals making under $125,000 a year. They received over 25 million applications in just the 4-week period that the application was open, but they only approved 16.5 million due to a court blockage coming from the Supreme Court. But, most of these borrowers were able to skip on paying for loans just simply because, during the COVID era that was put on pause. And, nothing has been approved due to the fact that all of this has been put on pause because of this court blockage. But, these are some of the states that are opposing this program. You have Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and South Carolina. These are all historically traditional and more conservative states, which have a different argument than these two individuals up here, Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor. Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor have a completely different argument, but they will be working together against the U.S. government, the Biden administration, and the Department of Education to fight this program. So here's what some of the legal strategy is going to be. The Biden administration is arguing that the HEROES Act of 2003 protects them and allows the Education Department to make modifications to federal student loan programs during a national emergency, such as, COVID-19, and then continuing on as so many people are currently still in debt. But they also have the defense of the Higher Education Act of 1965, which states that the Education Department, with specific language, can enforce, pay, compromise, and waive anything related to funds or any federal aid provided to the public. But the opposing state's argument is that, one state is arguing that it harms their current student loan program that's in the state. 3 states are arguing that it's forcing borrowers to consolidate their loans. But the individuals who are opposing this program are simply saying that they were not given the opportunity to oppose this, to voice their opinions. They weren't given a forum to speak out on what this program is and how it could affect them directly. But essentially, these two individuals, Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor, are coming from Texas, the state of Texas, which 2 million people did ask to give all of their debt forgiven. It's the second state under California with 2.2 million people who applied for this. Next is Florida. Florida has been in the news for different reasons regarding conservative law, but you see there are still so many different applicants. But let's see where this is headed. So the Supreme Court is set to deliver their ruling during the summertime, but this case is starting to open in February. President Biden could indefinitely extend this period, but many Democrats are arguing different things, and there's so many benefits to what this program can offer. Tegan and Chile, back to you.
Erica, thank you. Very important information with a lot of those students, obviously, who go here, California, yes. New York, Florida, some of those biggest applicants, lots of students here as well. But moving on, cases of classified documents have been found at not only the homes of former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden, but also former Vice President Mike Pence.
And these revelations are shedding a new light on how the federal government handles classified information. Talking Points analyst Adriana Haydarova joins us with more on recent developments involving current and past administrations.
That's right, Tegan. One consistent pattern follows all of these senior politicians when it comes to classified documents being uncovered time and time again. Over a dozen classified documents were found in Pence's Indiana home, who was not aware of the document's existence until the search. Now, the content of these documents remains sealed because the lawyer who found them immediately turned over the materials. But still, a series of these revelations raise questions about national security and accountability, not only from the Trump administration, but now, as we can see, it touches the Democrats as well. It is a bipartisan issue in which outrage from both parties can now come to an agreement. And that is that there is a lack of transparency in regulations and oversight from the White House, which underscores a certain level of carelessness.
Adriana, so this Pence news comes in just after Biden was caught with possessing classified documents. What exactly is the significance of this timing among, everything we've seen here?
Biden's case and all of the fallout that came with it last week prompted Pence to do a search in his own home. But the timing couldn't be more perfect for Biden, because now that a similar case exists, it makes it seem as though such things are more common and accidents like these do happen. This has the ability to dilute all the negative focus away from Biden, and it could not affect him as much when he does run in the upcoming elections.
Now, Adriana, both Trump and Biden's cases are being investigated. How does the discovery of the documents affect these politicians moving forward towards the next election cycle?
Well, we do know that Trump is running as president and Biden intends to run, while Pence may also consider to run in the primaries. And this trio does change the political landscape quite a bit, because when the Biden news came out about his classified documents, there were many Republicans who came on saying there's a double standard between how the Trump case was handled in comparison how Biden's case was handled. But now with Pence thrown into the picture, it shows that there will be more focus on that. And thank you, Chile and Tegan. Back to you.
Adriana Hydarova, thank you so much. And coming up on Talking Points, outrage in Memphis and across the country after the beating of a 29-year-old man by 5 police officers. We have an update on a possible 6th officer facing discipline tonight. Stay with us.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
I spy something beginning with S.
Snow?
No.
Snow-covered trees?
Nothing to do with snow.
Head outside to discover incredible animals and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure.
Wow.
So grab your loved ones.
Don't even.
And explore a world of possibilities.
Come on, this way.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiver.
Welcome back to Talking Points. The newly released video footage of 5 Memphis police officers stopping and beating 29-year-old Tyree Nichols sheds more light onto the events of January 7th and is prompting national protests. Talking Points analyst Ronnie Perillo joins us now. Ronnie, what has the body cam footage revealed?
Well, Chile, that body cam video was just released and has had national implications. Now, before we show you any video, we do want to warn you that some of this footage is disturbing. What we've learned over the past few days is that there were many angles this arrest was captured from. Body cameras on police officers, neighborhood cameras, and all give us more details about the incident. Now in the tapes, we see that initial traffic stop, but shortly after, we can hear what sounds to be some tense verbal exchanges. Nichols is pulled out of the car by an officer who is threatening him and then ends up on the ground. Officers use obscenities towards him, and Nichols calls for his mother as he is being pepper sprayed. He tries to fight back, but this is where the situation does turn especially violent. Officers punch and kick Nichols, even striking him with a foot to the face and using a baton on his upper body. Nichols then lays slumped against a car as the officers walk around and do not assist him. And after about 10 minutes, paramedics did arrive on scene and transport Nichols to the hospital. That is where he died 3 days later. Now, Nichols was black, as are all 5 officers involved, and protests have rang out against police brutality in the wake of his death. And just today, a 6th officer was fired from the Memphis Police Department. That officer was not involved in the incident directly on January 7th. The city of Memphis announced that the city's Scorpion unit, which all 5 officers were on, has since been disbanded. It was originally started by the city to curb the spike in crime there.
Ronnie, you know, this is probably the most notable incident of police brutality since the death of George Floyd back in 2020 by the Minneapolis police. What has been the national response to this event, and is it similar to the events that took place in the aftermath of the George Floyd case from a few years back?
Well, Chile, you're absolutely right. This has gained a lot of press attention, a lot of outrage from Americans across the country. Protests spanning from New York to San Francisco to Memphis really have just poured out in the wake of this. In Atlanta, Georgia, things did turn violent Some police cruisers were burned there by the protesters, so things got a little bit out of hand there. But cities really kind of renewing that call to action that police procedures need to be observed again. As a matter of fact, just the city of Syracuse here in central New York says that those actions were abhorrent. They completely shot that down.
Ronnie Perillo, thank you so much. And now, recent mass shootings in Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay, California have continued conversations surrounding gun control. Talking Points analyst Luke Radel is back in studio and here to discuss the politics behind these tragedies. Luke?
Thanks, Tegan and Chile. Great to be back. Last week, California was rocked by multiple mass shootings and a string of gun violence that is sweeping the nation. Here's what Vice President Kamala Harris had to say while visiting a memorial site in the Monterey Park, California shooting that left 11 dead in her home state.
Can this Congress do anything?
They absolutely can.
They can accomplish.
They have the power to. Can they do something? Yes. Should they do something? Yes. Will they do something? That is where we all must speak up.
This sentiment from the Vice President is a common one from politicians in the all too familiar aftermath of a mass shooting like this one. But it doesn't do much to answer the question. Do something isn't a solution, it's a slogan. The responsibility of our elected officials is to figure out what that something is and then to actually do it. So what's the something being proposed by President Biden?
I'm determined to ban assault weapons in this country. Determined. I did it once before, and I'll do it again. When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down.
According to the president, if we ban assault weapons, mass shootings will go down. But that's not the case according to data collected by James Allen Fox, a professor at Northeastern University. Assault weapons only accounted for 24.6% of mass shootings, and the original assault weapons ban, passed during Joe Biden's time in the United States Senate, had a, quote, minimal impact on the number of mass shootings per year. Oh, and another thing, the state of California that had these two most recent mass shootings already has an assault weapons ban, along with many other gun laws that make them one of the most restrictive states in the country. This point was readily made by another California native, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Having lived in California my entire life and know California has the strictest gun laws there are, and apparently that did not work in this situation too.
But it's not just Speaker McCarthy making this point. The district attorney in San Mateo County, California, where the Half Moon Bay shooting took place, said, quote, "I don't mean to sound forlorn, but I've been watching this for decades and I'm a gun control type guy and I just see nothing coming out of it."
Now, Luke, you're talking about these restrictions, specifically in California, this ban on assault weapons already. McCarthy talking about how they have such strict measures there. How exactly were these mass shootings able to slip through those cracks even with all of these restrictions in place in California?
You know, Tegan, it's still unclear just how both of these mass shooters were able to slip through the cracks. One thing that a lot of experts have pointed to is these red flag laws that have been passed in California and to some extent on the national level. But in order for a red flag law to work, which requires someone who knows the prospective threat to the community to notify a court in order to confiscate their gun, someone has to go to the court and say that this person is a danger. It seems like in this case, these two shooters both had run-ins with the police, were both in possession of guns that were not legally allowed in the state of California, but nobody had gone to the court to actually report them, and so we end up with situations like this where they slip through the cracks.
Luke Radel, thank you. And again, this is something we see a lot of the time with a lot of these mass shootings and mass shooters where they'll be put on a watch list by the feds, the FBI, and whatnot, and they'll still slip through the cracks. So it's something that's interesting as we go forward here. But coming up on Talking Points, some prominent California Democrats have called open season on the current senator's seat, who they're gunning to replace when we come back.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Welcome back to Talking Points. On Thursday, California Congressman Adam Schiff announced he is running for Senate in 2024. The seat is currently held by Dianne Feinstein. Schiff was the leading impeachment manager of Donald Trump's first impeachment and served on the House panel investigating January 6th.
His announcement comes after Congresswoman Katie Porter announced she would run for the same seat earlier this month. Joining us now is Talking Points analyst Noah Gutflesh. Noah, thank you so much for joining us. Now, with both Schiff and Porter announcing bids, despite Feinstein not saying she's retiring, why would they do that?
Well, the biggest issue with Feinstein and the elephant in the room is her age. She's going to be 91 in 2024, so she's the oldest senator in the U.S. Senate, so that is the biggest reason. Also, her health. She actually is the longest tenured Democrat in the Senate, but she decided not to be the Senate President pro tempore, which is potentially because she is not fit to do that, and there's been reports that she is not quite mentally there and is suffering from memory loss. So that's a big issue. Also, California, it's not it's a jungle system, so it could be Democrat versus Democrat. So you would still have a chance in that situation.
And Noah, moving to one of those candidates looking to gun against Feinstein's seat, Adam Schiff, on both Trump impeachment panels and on the January 6th committee as well. How will Schiff's prior connections to the Capitol riots affect his campaign for Senate against Katie Porter?
According to polling, actually, that recently came out, he was down 10 points. Now, there are a lot of undecideds. Actually, about a third of the poll was undecided, but a lot of Republicans are not happy with Adam Schiff and are very angry with him. And many people believe that they would actually vote for Porter if she was against Schiff instead of Schiff because of his connections to the Trump impeachment. So his best chance is really to be against a Republican. So his chances are not so great if it's Democrat versus Democrat.
Talking Points analyst Noah Gutflesh, thank you. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is expected to meet with President Biden Wednesday amid a possible debt ceiling shutdown. The meeting is an effort to avoid a default on the country's debt. McCarthy said he wants to try and find a middle ground between a balanced budget and avoiding a debt default.
The White House said Biden will remind McCarthy that it is his constitutional obligation to prevent a national default. However, the president and speaker will negotiate which programs to cut spending and continue spending. As the Russian invasion... Excuse us for a moment as we're having some technical difficulties. We're joined at the desk now by Talking Points analyst Peter Barry. So Peter, what is the current state of the war in Ukraine and how will the military bill specifically help Ukraine?
So the war in Ukraine has been going on for nearly a year now, this coming February. It's been mainly a defensive war, but due to the support of NATO and the United States, Ukraine has been able to push back Russia, even forcing them to have a draft. Earlier this month, Joe Biden sent in 31 Abrams tanks into Ukraine on the front lines. And now he's training troops in Ukraine, and he is also sending $2 billion in relief to Ukraine.
And Peter, in recent days, many Ukrainian officials have been resigning due to allegations of corruption. How does this affect the bill, and are lawmakers cautious to fund Ukraine in the aftermath of this news?
Yes, many Ukrainian officials have been using government funds for their own personal use, but now American lawmakers are forcing Ukrainians to log their own guns, and so they cannot make sure that it doesn't go to misuse. Notable senators Josh Hawley and House Congressman Matt Gaetz has received some pushback because it's not in the American interests. And now the bill will pass with a slimmer majority now. Overall, for the foreseeable future, this conflict will continue. And maybe they'll reach an agreement like Britain or Ireland did, such as the Good Friday Agreement. And that's how it should be done. negotiations.
Peter Berry, thank you so much. Coming up after the break, Facebook and Instagram have a new, or should we say old, user back on the platform. But there are more restrictions placed this time around. We'll talk about the policies when we come back.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Finally tonight, former President Donald Trump's indefinite ban on the social media platforms Instagram and Facebook has been lifted. Trump was suspended from the Meta platforms in the aftermath of the January 6th insurrection.
Trump, who has been using his new social media app, Truth Social, currently has yet to announce he is coming back to the platform, either Instagram or Facebook. So he was reinstated last week. He hasn't posted anything, and there's been really little interaction from even the current followers on there, because they do have the ability to comment on these posts now since he's reinstated, but still really no activity going on.
Yeah, and you know, I think it probably is going to switch coming up soon. Truth Social, you know, as much as Trump got on the platform, as much as he at first was like, I'm not getting off of here, I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. Facebook, Instagram provide a lot of things. Obviously, social traction. You saw in 2016, 2020, when Donald Trump tweeted, when Donald Trump posted something on Facebook, it had the ability to change the entire news cycle. That's an important aspect that if he's running in 2024 like he is, he's going to need to have that back. I think that's going to cause him to come back on these platforms and be more active. The other thing with Facebook and Instagram in particular, in the comparison to Twitter, fundraising. Fundraising, very important. He's able to say, here, donate to my fund, donate to my election campaign here, in ways he can't do elsewhere. He needs that traffic off of Facebook for his base, and I don't see any scenario which he doesn't come back, and he doesn't come back in full force going into 2024.
Yeah, well, following him being reinstated and following, obviously, his announcement that he's running in 2024, that, like you said, is going to be his fundraising platform, but he's going to face an issue if he posts the type of content that he did that originally got him banned, because unlike other people, he has a different policy for him. He has a 1-strike policy instead of a 5-strike policy like you and I. Something on the Meta website about their policy says when a public figure's restriction has expired and they regain access to Facebook or Instagram, they will be subject to heightened penalties to deter repeat offenses. While most new violations will trigger a 1-month restriction from creating any content, more serious violations will merit a further 2-year restriction. So basically, 1 strike and he's out.
And it's going to be really interesting to see if Facebook and Meta actually enforce this or whether they try and stay behind. That's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CitrusTV News and like us on Facebook. I'm Chile Cassia Dele.
And I'm Tegan Brown. Have a great night, Syracuse.